What if the very things you've been judging as falling apart are actually signs that you're coming back together? What if the tears, the tiredness, the sudden waves of emotion are not proof that you're failing, but proof that something inside you is finally soft enough to heal? You expected healing to feel light, radiant, obvious. You thought one day you would wake up and simply know you were better. But healing rarely announces itself that way. Sometimes it feels messy. Sometimes it feels like doubt. Sometimes it feels like losing patience for what you used to tolerate. And that can be frightening. Have you noticed that you no longer react the way you once did? That the same words don't wound you as deeply? That you're beginning to question old patterns instead of blindly repeating them? You may call that confusion. I call it awareness. Awareness is the first quiet sign. Or perhaps you feel more emotional lately, more sensitive. You cry at things that once rolled off your back. You feel things you used to numb. That is not weakness. That is your heart thawing. Numbness is protection. Feeling is progress. Maybe you are also losing interest in certain relationships, habits, or conversations. What once felt normal now feels heavy. That discomfort is not regression. It is growth. You are outgrowing what no longer matches your worth. Healing does not mean you never struggle. It means you struggle differently. You catch yourself sooner. You speak to yourself more kindly. You pause before reacting. These small shifts are easy to overlook, but they are profound. If you ignore them, you will believe nothing is changing. You will assume you are stuck. But if you look gently, you will see evidence everywhere. In the boundaries you are learning to set, in the apologies you no longer chase, in the moments you choose rest without guilt. Let me ask you this: are you even a little more compassionate toward yourself than you were a year ago? Do you question your inner critic more than you used to? That is not accidental. That is healing in motion. Stay with me, because there are signs you may be missing. Quiet, subtle signs that life inside you is reorganizing itself. You are not behind. You are not broken. Even if it doesn't feel dramatic, even if it feels slow, you are healing. One of the quietest signs that you are healing is also one of the easiest to dismiss. It is this: you notice yourself now. There was a time when you reacted without pausing. Words would leave your mouth before you understood what you were feeling. Patterns would repeat without question. You would leave conversations confused, hurt, or frustrated, yet unsure why. Life felt like something happening to you. Now something is different. You catch yourself mid-thought. You hear the tone in your voice. You recognize when your chest tightens. You notice when an old memory rises. That noticing may feel uncomfortable. It may even feel like you are more aware of your flaws than ever before. But awareness is not regression. It is awakening. When you walk into a dark room and turn on the light, you see what was already there. The room did not become messier. You simply began to see it clearly. The same is true of your inner life. For many years, you may have lived on automatic response. Someone criticized you, and you immediately defended yourself. Someone disappointed you, and you withdrew. Something reminded you of the past, and you shut down. Now perhaps you pause, you feel the reaction rising, you recognize it, you may still feel the emotion. You may even still speak sharply at times, but afterward you understand it more quickly, you reflect, you ask yourself what truly hurt. That is healing. It does not look glamorous. It does not feel triumphant. It often feels humbling, yet it is profound. You are no longer lost inside your reactions. You are observing them. When you begin observing your patterns, you loosen their hold. A pattern cannot remain powerful once it is seen clearly. Awareness interrupts repetition. This simple shift can save 10 years of repeating the same lesson, 10 years of reacting without reflection, 10 years of choosing the same kind of relationship without realizing why. 10 years of feeling wounded by the same words because the underlying belief remained untouched. Now you notice, you may hear yourself thinking, there I go again, but instead of condemning yourself, you begin to ask, what is this feeling trying to tell me? That question alone changes everything. Notice how this feels in your body. Instead of tightening immediately, there is a moment of curiosity. Curiosity is gentler than judgment. You are no longer asking, why am I like this, with shame. You are asking, what do I need, with awareness. This is growth. I have known people who believed they were not progressing because they still experienced difficult emotions. Yet when they looked closely, they realized they were catching themselves sooner. They were apologizing more sincerely. They were recognizing old patterns before fully acting them out. Others noticed their steadiness. Instead of escalating arguments, they paused. Instead of defending themselves harshly, they listened. Instead of running from discomfort, they sat with it. Their presence felt calmer. This calm did not come from suppressing emotion. It came from awareness. Awareness is strength without force. It is the ability to see yourself clearly without attacking yourself. It is the willingness to admit when something hurt without turning it into identity. You may not give yourself credit for this shift because it feels small, but small shifts accumulate. The first time you pause before responding, it feels awkward. The 10th time, it feels natural. The 100th time, it becomes your new pattern. Repetition works quietly. Each time you choose awareness over automatic reaction, you reinforce healing. Each time you notice your inner critic and gently redirect it, you strengthen compassion. You might say softly, I observe myself with kindness, or awareness brings freedom. Let these words become familiar. Healing often begins with discomfort because awareness reveals what has been hidden. But once revealed, you are no longer powerless. You may even notice that you are less surprised by your emotions. You recognize when you are tired and therefore more sensitive. You recognize when an old wound is touched. Instead of spiraling, you breathe. This breathing space is progress. Others may describe you as mature, grounded, thoughtful. They may not understand that what they are sensing is your ability to pause. Pausing changes outcomes. When you pause, you choose differently. When you choose differently, your life reorganizes. The reminder your heart needed today includes this truth. If you notice yourself, you are healing. You are not blind to your patterns anymore. You are not repeating without reflection. You are not lost in reaction. You are aware. And awareness is the first quiet sign that something inside you is waking up. You do not need dramatic proof of growth. You need only to recognize the small moments when you choose presence over impulse. Those moments are seeds. Nurture them with compassion. Repeat them with patience. You are no longer asleep to yourself, and that alone is a beautiful beginning. Another quiet sign that you are healing may feel, at first, like the opposite of progress. You feel more. You cry more easily. You are touched by small things. You notice sadness where once there was numbness. You may even feel overwhelmed by emotions you thought you had already handled. And you wonder, why am I more sensitive now? Let me tell you gently, numbness is protection. Feeling is progress. There was a time when your heart learned to brace. Perhaps it was necessary then. Perhaps you were hurt, disappointed, or overwhelmed. The heart has a beautiful instinct. It knows how to protect itself. It builds walls. It freezes feelings so you can survive. But frozen water does not flow. When you begin to heal, the ice thaws. And when it thaws, water moves again. Movement can feel messy. Tears may come unexpectedly. Old memories may surface. You may feel compassion for yourself in places where once you felt judgment. This is not regression. It is release. You are not becoming weaker, you are becoming softer. And softness is strength in its truest form. When you suppressed emotion, it required effort. It required tightening your chest, holding your breath, distracting your thoughts. That constant bracing drained energy without you realizing it. Now that you are allowing yourself to feel, that energy begins to shift. You may notice that when you cry, something in your body relaxes afterward. The shoulders lower, the breath deepens. There is a quiet sense of relief. Relief is evidence of release. For many years, you may have believed that strength meant composure. That being unshaken meant being healed. Yet true healing allows the heart to respond fully. I have seen individuals who were admired for their calm exterior finally permit themselves to feel. At first, they felt exposed. But as they practiced allowing emotion without shame, their presence became more authentic. Others felt closer to them. Authenticity invites connection. When you allow yourself to feel, you give others permission to do the same. You may also notice that emotions move through you more quickly now. You feel them fully, and then they pass. In the past, suppressed emotions lingered beneath the surface. They appeared as irritability, fatigue, or distance. Now they rise and release. This is healing in motion. You might say softly, "It is safe for me to feel." Repeat it gently. Notice if your body softens. Emotions are not enemies. They are messages. When you welcome them, they complete their work more quickly. There is courage in allowing yourself to cry. There is wisdom in admitting you are hurt. There is growth in acknowledging that something mattered to you. Many successful people have shared that their true turning point came when they stopped pretending to be unaffected, when they allowed themselves to grieve losses, when they admitted disappointment, when they forgave themselves for feeling. Afterward, their clarity improved, their relationships deepened, their decisions became more aligned with their truth. Feeling reconnects you to vitality. When you are numb, joy is muted along with pain. When you allow sadness, you also allow delight. When you permit vulnerability, you also permit intimacy. The reminder your heart needed today includes this understanding. Sensitivity is not a flaw. It is a sign of openness. You may still fear being overwhelmed by emotion. That fear is understandable. But notice, are you truly overwhelmed? Or are you simply feeling what has been waiting? Each wave of emotion that rises and falls strengthens your trust in yourself. You realize that you can survive discomfort, you can move through it, you do not have to shut down. This shift can save 20 years of emotional disconnection, 20 years of pretending not to care, 20 years of protecting yourself from your own heart, 20 years of missing joy because you feared pain. You are not losing control. You are regaining feeling. You are not falling apart. You are thawing. Place your hand over your heart and say, "My emotions are welcome." Let that be enough for today. Healing is not always bright and obvious. Sometimes it looks like tears. Sometimes it looks like tenderness. Sometimes it looks like feeling more than you expected. Trust this process. Frozen water cannot nourish the earth. Flowing water can. You are flowing again. And that is a beautiful sign that healing is underway. Another quiet sign that you are healing may not feel pleasant at first. You find yourself less patient with what you once tolerated. Conversations that once felt normal now feel draining. Behaviors you once excused now feel heavy. Situations you once endured quietly now stir discomfort inside you. You may wonder, why am I so easily bothered now? You are not becoming difficult. You are becoming aware of what does not fit you anymore. When you grow, your standards shift. Not from pride, from self-respect. There was a time when you accepted certain treatment because you doubted your worth. You remained silent because you feared conflict. You over-explained because you wanted approval. You stayed in environments that diminished you because they felt familiar. Familiar does not always mean healthy. As you heal, what once felt acceptable begins to feel misaligned. This discomfort is not regression. It is evidence that your inner sense of value has strengthened. Clothes that once fit comfortably begin to feel tight when you grow. You do not blame the clothes. You recognize that you have changed. In the same way, certain relationships or habits may no longer feel comfortable. You may lose interest in gossip. You may decline invitations that once felt obligatory. You may feel the urge to leave conversations that revolve around criticism. This is not judgment of others. It is recognition of yourself. At first, this shift can feel isolating. You may fear disappointing people. You may worry that you are becoming too sensitive. Yet sensitivity to your own well-being is not selfishness. It is maturity. Maturity means honoring your energy. I have seen respected leaders and successful individuals reach a point where they became more selective with their time. They stopped saying yes automatically. They stopped tolerating disrespect disguised as humor. They began choosing environments that supported their growth. Others perceive this change as confidence. When you tolerate less that harms you, you radiate quiet strength. You are no longer negotiating your value through endurance. You are living it through clarity. You may notice that you no longer chase apologies. You no longer replay conversations for hours. You no longer accept explanations that do not feel sincere. Instead, you listen to your inner response. This is healing. You might say softly, "I honor my growth." Let those words settle. They affirm that discomfort can be progress. There was a time when you bent yourself to fit expectations. Now, you may feel resistance to bending so easily. That resistance is self-respect awakening. You may still feel guilt. That is natural. Old habits do not disappear instantly, but notice how quickly you recover. Notice how much sooner you recognize when something does not feel right. Recognition protects your future. This shift can prevent decades of self-betrayal, decades of overgiving to feel accepted, decades of remaining silent to avoid tension, decades of settling for less than you deserved. When you tolerate less, you create space for more aligned experiences. Relationships adjust. Some fade naturally, others deepen because they rise to meet your new standard. Conversations become more meaningful. Interactions become more honest. Others sense your boundaries even when you do not speak them loudly. Boundaries do not require aggression. They require clarity. You may find yourself speaking more simply. Instead of lengthy explanations, you offer brief honesty. Instead of justifying your needs, you state them calmly. This steadiness commands respect. Healing does not mean you never feel hurt. It means you no longer ignore what hurts. You respond sooner. You correct gently. You choose differently. Discomfort with old patterns is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of expansion. Expansion often feels awkward before it feels natural. You might affirm, "It is safe to choose differently," or "I deserve relationships that reflect my worth." Let these words strengthen your foundation. As you continue healing, what once felt normal may feel too small. This is not arrogance. It is growth. You are not rejecting the past. You are acknowledging that you have moved beyond it. The reminder your heart needed today includes this truth. If something feels heavy now, it means you have become lighter. You are not regressing. You are refining. You are not becoming difficult. You are becoming discerning, and discernment is a sign that your healing is real. Trust this shift. It is leading you toward a life that reflects who you are becoming, not who you were surviving as. There is a change that happens so quietly you may not even recognize it at first. It is not something others hear. It is something you hear. It is the way you speak to yourself. There was a time when your inner voice may have sounded sharp, quick to correct, quick to point out what was missing, quick to remind you of what you should have done better. That voice may have believed it was helping you improve. Now something softer is emerging. Perhaps you still hear the critic, but you catch it sooner. You notice the tone. You pause before accepting its verdict as truth. Instead of agreeing immediately with "not good enough," you gently ask, "Is that really fair?" That question alone is healing. For years you may have treated your thoughts as facts. If the mind said you were lacking, you believed it. If the mind replayed a mistake, you punished yourself quietly. That constant inner correction shaped how you felt about your life. Now you are beginning to choose your thoughts more carefully. You might say, "I am learning," instead of "I failed." You might say, "That was difficult," instead of "I am weak." You might say, "I am proud of myself for trying," instead of "I should have done more." These shifts seem small. They are not. The words you speak to yourself are the soil your life grows in. If the soil is harsh, growth is strained. If the soil is kind, growth is steady. When you soften your inner voice, your nervous system responds. The shoulders relax. The breath steadies. The body no longer braces against your own thoughts. I have seen individuals transform their lives not by changing their circumstances first, but by changing their inner dialogue. They practice looking into the mirror and saying, "I approve of you." At first it felt unnatural, yet repetition turned discomfort into familiarity. Over time, they carried themselves differently. Others noticed their calm. Their confidence was not loud. It was grounded. Grounded confidence comes from self-approval. You may notice that when you make a mistake now, you recover faster. Instead of replaying it for days, you acknowledge it and move forward. Instead of turning it into identity, you treat it as experience. This is healing. You may also find that you encourage yourself more often. Before a challenge, you say, "I can handle this." After a setback, you say, "It's all right." These gentle statements change how you experience difficulty. For many years, you may have believed that being hard on yourself ensured success. Yet harshness created tension. Tension drained energy. Energy is needed for growth. When you choose kind thoughts, you conserve energy for living. You might repeat quietly, "I support myself," or "I choose kind thoughts." Let those affirmations replace old habits of criticism. Repetition matters. Not because you are forcing change, but because you are retraining your mind. Thoughts practiced daily become beliefs. Beliefs shape experience. This shift can save 30 years of internal conflict, 30 years of arguing with yourself, 30 years of measuring your worth by every error, 30 years of feeling like your own enemy. When you become your own ally, life changes. Others sense when someone is not fighting themselves. There is a softness in your eyes, a steadiness in your voice, a lack of defensiveness in your posture. You do not rush to justify yourself. You do not collapse under small mistakes. You stand with yourself. That alignment is powerful. Healing does not mean you never have negative thoughts. It means you no longer believe them automatically. You question them, you replace them, you refuse to let them define you. You are no longer repeating every old conclusion about yourself. You are writing new ones. This is one of the clearest signs of healing. The reminder your heart needed today includes this truth. If your inner voice is softer than it was before, you are healing deeply. Even if you still struggle, even if you still doubt sometimes, even if growth feels slow, listen closely to how you speak to yourself. If there is more compassion there than there was a year ago, something beautiful is unfolding. You are cultivating new soil, and in that soil, your life will continue to grow, not through force, but through kindness. That is healing in motion. One of the most overlooked signs of healing is this: you are beginning to rest without as much guilt. There was a time when sitting still felt uncomfortable. When finishing the day without completing everything on your list felt like failure. When taking a quiet moment required justification. Rest was something you earned only after exhaustion. Now, even if only briefly, you allow yourself to pause. You may notice that you no longer replay every conversation before sleep. You no longer chase every apology. You